Collins reporting to you live for Hollywood.com, and we're here at the Swank Manhattan Eatery Cipriani for the 71st Annual New York Film Critics Awards Dinner. Let's go talk to some of the heavy hitters.
Anytime I came to some understanding about him that I thought was accurate, the exact opposite would be true about him, and that was tricky because there was never any place you could land. He was somebody who kind of floated above the judgment. You could judge him, but then you could love him at the same time.
Sometimes people remember him as such a character, and his late life antics really went a long way to sort of dismantle his reputation as a writer, I think, amongst some. But he was an artist. He was a serious writer.
Well, it was initially it's just because I grew up there, so I knew Brooklyn. It was where I spent my adolescence, and so that's why I picked it. Once I picked it, I started to intellectualize it. Well, it's on the outskirts. It's not Manhattan. You look over, you're kind of part of New York, but you're outside of, Manhattan. So, I think there's a kind of, the characters in the movie feel like outsiders. Brooklyn is a little bit of an outsider, place.
Well, I'll tell you, from the very beginning, Ang Lee used to say to me, everyone calls me an independent filmmaker. But the only reason they do that is because I'm Chinese and nobody will give me money.
I think it's more independent. I think the vibe, just because I make movie, there's always mainstream dramatic element and the dramatic flow to it.
On the one hand, everybody said, wow, this is going to change a lot of people's minds. And that's great. I'm happy about that. But I'm happier about getting emails from people who are living in small towns and rural communities and writing to me and saying, thank you so much for making this movie because that was my life, or this is the life I could have had and now I realize I don't have to.
I realize they are my fellow filmmakers, even though they're young and they might have less experience than I do, but the movie rely on them. I want to give them some rooms. I think the best thing I could do for them, other than rehearsing and talk over the characters and the story, but create a world they can live in.
I have to say, it's been a very exciting time for movies. I'm very hard to please. I've been doing this a long time, and you start to know too much about how movies are made. It's very hard to really just get lost in one. And I have been caught up in a good number of films this year. There's such tremendous acting going on.
I think this is David's best film ever. I think he's such a genius, and more than that, he has such a humanity about him, and this film certainly reflects that. And I think it's about time he was recognized.
John had an incredible sense of style, but also I think one thing that we're surely lacking these days is attaching style to meaning. That what you wore says something, not merely about how cool you are or different you are, but also about where you come from and what you represent. And I think for John, the colors that he wore, or the lack of them, the density of them, the intensity of them, were really ended up standing for something very profound about the shadows inside every human heart.
Thanks for joining us at Hollywood.com.